Hello everybody and welcome to the unboxing of Caroline Myss Archetype cards. I know that this deck has been around for a while, but it is new to me in my personal collection and it's been calling to me for a while. So I've decided to make a review and an unboxing of it, of the Archetype cards. So this is the box. I do love this gold foil that they have on top. I love the color red, so I'm super into this box. You get 74 cards and you also get 6 blank cards that you can actually kind of create your own archetype. So that's actually a pretty cool feature that if you're working with different energies, maybe you kind of want to add on to the deck, which is also if you're a deck creator, if you're thinking about being a deck creator, having these extra cards is actually a really cool idea to just maybe get your project started or just putting down these initial ideas. But anyway, so it's from Hay House. Very, very sturdy box. Your regular Hay House box, I would say. But it is a pretty thick deck. So let's open it. Of course, we get the guide book. And when I got this deck, it was one of those that I was like, I want to read the guidebook before I actually really start working with the cards. So you have the 4 archetypes of survival, which is super interesting because it does go into, of course it does, right? It is the archetypes card, but it does go into what archetypes are, how to work with this deck, what it means. The wounded child, there are many actually different children here on this, the prostitute. You have like different archetypes. Then you have determining your archetypes. You kind of have an exercise that goes with it. Let's see, I'm pretty sure we have concise summary. I like that. Some suggestions on using this deck. I'm pretty sure we also have, let me see. I thought we had some spreads, but maybe not. Maybe we don't have spreads exactly with this deck, and that's okay. That's okay. But then you really get into the cards. This book is in alphabetical order, so the cards don't have a number, which I'm okay with. As long as there's some sort of order in the book, either it's by number or by alphabetical order, I'm okay with. I have seen, unfortunately, some decks that they have, well, they think they have an order, but it's not in an order, I guess, that's as organized as maybe I would like it to be. But that's just personal preference, of course, nothing to do with anything. So these are the 6 extra cards that you get. These are the backs. I think it's a pretty back, a little bit Art Nouveau, Art Deco kind of style. The cardstock is pretty good. It's flexible, but you know it's going to last for a long time. Plus, it is a mass-produced deck, so if it does get damaged or something, it's not like an indie deck where you're never going to see it again. Okay, so I will be showing you all the cards, all 74 cards. If you don't want to see all of them, you can double tap on your screen or, fast forward and skip ahead, or you can skip this part altogether. Now, because I have been using this deck for a little while, they are out of order, all right? So we have Child Eternal. They're actually, like I said, a few different children. We saw that in the book. We have the light attributes and the shadow attributes, which is super interesting. My only thing that I wish they would have done is they would have flipped the shadow attributes. So when I pulled it in reverse, I could actually read the shadow attributes while the card is reversed, versus having to like, oh, I got it reversed. Okay, let me flip it again and read the shadow. Does that make sense? So that's my only thing. But that does not take away from the cards at all. Okay, so we have Child Eternal, we have the light and the shadow attributes, we have the Alchemist. Honestly, of course it's called the archetype cards, but I've seen other archetype decks out there, and this to me seems to be the most comprehensive and the most expansive archetype. Now, I also have the Kim Cran's The Wild Unknown archetypes, and I love that deck. But I'm not sure archetypes is the correct word for that deck, because the archetypes have to do with people, personalities. It's more a human attribute or a human facet, something like that. Whereas in the Wild Unknown Archetype Oracle, it's got, yes, it has archetypes like personal, right, for a human being archetype, but it also uses places and objects and things as archetypes. And I'm not quite sure that is an archetype, but it still is an amazing deck, and I absolutely love working with that deck. So whatever it's called, I very much love it. We got the Poet. We got the Vampire. This I find very, very interesting because we've seen the Warrior, right? We've seen the Wounded Child. We've seen the Prostitute, for example. And maybe for most of us, we would look at the word vampire and be like, oh, I don't want to be a vampire. I don't want to. I mean, of course, I'm not talking about Hollywood vampires, but we think of vampires as like horror movies or this shadow attribute of it. But then you also get the light attribute of something that is seemingly darker, right? So, for example, the light attribute of vampires makes you aware that someone or something is draining your life force. So I find that to be really, really interesting, right? Mother, Samaritan, we always think of the good Samaritan, but then what's the shadow attribute? So I do like how this deck, see Child Divine. If I didn't see anything, I'd be like, oh my God, if this deck only had Child Divine and nothing else on it, I would be like, oh, Child Divine, of course, makes total sense. It's a divine child, it's a light being. But then you get the shadow attribute, which is an inability to defend oneself against negative forces. So again, this deck does kind of bring that challenge of any kind of archetype or any way that we're feeling or dealing with. It can be light. It can also be shadow to be healed. So I love that. The Exorcist. And I haven't spent a lot of time with this deck and the images. I haven't spent a lot of time like looking at the images. So far from what I've seen, I don't think that, so for example, I'm a tarot card reader. I love tarot cards, and a lot of oracle decks, the image is very heavy, right? It's like a heavy based imagery. And you can pull many symbols and many intuitions from the images. This one, I feel like it's more word based. So you're going to look at the words, at the light and the shadow, if it's upside down or upright, and go, okay, not so much from the image, but more from the words, which is fine. I'm okay with that. Maybe some of you are not. I'm definitely more of a visual person, but I don't mind having a word heavy deck. Trickster, Companion. In some way too, you can also maybe look at the colors and even intuit that way. You know, I know that there's color healing out there. I know that there are color decks out there. For example, our chakra system has to do with different colors, right? So maybe brown, you can intuit that as I need to be more grounded. You know, magentas, pinks, purples are more about higher self, higher consciousness. So you can also maybe even bring that intuition to the self and let you guide. We have the guide card here, and let you guide maybe in a deeper way. Got the Artist, Messiah. As you can see, it's pretty glossy as well, but I don't find the gloss on here to be annoying. It's not super shiny. You see, even Gossip would think of like shadow attributes, but then what's the light attribute? Awakens consideration for the feelings of others. Interesting, right? So then it's not so much gossip anymore, it's more like building trust. Even the bully too. I usually always think of a bully as a shadow attribute, but then you also get the light one. And here's the thing too. I like that this deck has, you know, God, goddess, but also bully and gossip, because we're all capable of light and we're all capable of shadow. We are. That's the thing. We all are. You know, I'm not saying something too extreme here, of course, but we have all been light beings in someone else's life, but we've also been the cause of pain in someone else's life. In this deck, I like that because it embraces both sides of us. The yin yang. The Hermit, a little bit, the Fool and the Hermit remind me, of course, of tarot cards. Femme Fatale, I like that. Scribe, Writer, Student, and finally the King. So those are all 74 cards, everybody, by from the Archetypes cards by Caroline Myss. Now, if you don't know how to pronounce her name, I didn't for the longest time until I read a book called Daily Love by Maston Kipp, and he talks about her, and he actually corrects you, and he says it's Caroline Myss, like a mace pepper spray. So it's Caroline Myss. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this unboxing and review of the Archetype cards by Caroline Myss. Have a beautiful day out there. Thanks so much.